real football show again with the English Premier League, both with a congested schedule this week. I'll have my rankings from this past week, preview of the coming week, because we have midweek games, Tuesday, Wednesday, and one game Thursday, and then games again this weekend. So I'll have another, Friday I'll have another one where I'm wrapping up the midweek games, and then previewing the games coming up this weekend. The rankings this week, I can kind of show you real quickly. See a lot of C's, a lot of, good games, but just the teams themselves, performances. Liverpool, which has, I'll start with that game because that's probably the easiest one. Liverpool, which has obviously been struggling so far, we've talked about that. 9-0 tying a Premier League record for worst beating of another team to Bournemouth. So the only A+, Liverpool. The only F, Bournemouth. Again, we've talked about this. Welcome to the Premier League. Their first 4 weeks of the season, Bournemouth would have had a hard time having drawn a harder first 4 weeks of the season, getting Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool all in the first 4 weeks. So that's obviously difficult, but it is what it is. Man U stays on the winning track with beating Southampton. Only 1-0. Again, I don't. Southampton's had a decent start to the season, but I don't think that's necessarily anything to write home about. So I gave Man U a B, Southampton a C for that. Chelsea, even with the red card, beats Leicester City. But Leicester City's struggling right now, so I don't know if that's that big of a deal. Chelsea had a good game against Tottenham, but again, they're for Big Four team, I don't think they're necessarily playing at the levels that you like. I thought Leeds United was going to win. They didn't. They lost 1-0 to Brighton. But again, Brighton's off to a good start. They're in the top 4. So Brighton is one of my A's. Leeds I gave was again one of those C's. It wasn't a bad loss, but a loss. It was a loss. Man City had 2 weeks in a row struggling, falling behind. Last week they were able to come back to get a tie. This week they came back in the second half in dominant fashion to win 4-2 over Crystal Palace. Holland getting a hat trick very early in his Man City career. So I have Man City with an A for that performance. Again, Crystal Palace, I gave a C. Just again, they're playing one of the best teams in the world. I gave them a good game, so you can't fault that. Brentford, Everton, both 1-1. I gave both of them C's. I think Everton's in the conversation for teams most likely to be relegated this year. They're one of the few teams that has never been relegated, so that would be historic news. So we shall see. Arsenal 2-1 over Fulham. I gave Arsenal B+ for that. Again, good performance. Fulham's in that discussion, or has been in that discussion, of whether they're going to be relegated. So you would expect a team that with Arsenal that now seems to be on the right track. Definitely looking at top 4 performance this year to do a little bit better. But again, that is what it is. You have Wolves and Newcastle with a 1-1. I give both of them C's. Newcastle, I guess it's maybe a little lesser C, because again, they're one of those teams, and they go in City game last weekend, and they're definitely trying to kind of take that next step. But Wolves is not a bad team usually. And okay, West Ham finally gets a victory over Aston Villa. I'm not sure if you saw the game though. I watched most of that game, and West Ham. It was a very unconvincing 1-0 win. The goal was off of severe deflection. So again, I gave West Ham a C for the win, and Aston Villa actually I gave them a C too, because again I don't think there was a whole lot of difference in the performance. Tottenham so far this season, in the last game of the past weekend, they did well. Nottingham Forest, until a few days ago, had the highest spend of any of the teams in the Premier League this transfer window, which is closing on Thursday. Large, I think 188 million American dollars. That's a lot for a team coming up from relegation, but that's their owners saying, hey, we want to stay. So, you know, more power to them. The games this week, games today, Crystal Palace and Brentford. Brentford's done well, and I think Brentford's going to probably find a way to get that victory. It's going to be close. Crystal Palace, again, did pretty well against Man City, but again, I think Brentford's going to do that. Brighton and Fulham. Fulham has been a surprise so far this season in the positive, doing pretty well, but I think Brighton's trying to make that case. I don't think they're really big six, but maybe top half of the table. So I would expect them to at least get a tie and probably get a win. Close. Southampton and Chelsea. Chelsea, you know, again, other than the game against Tottenham, I just don't know if they've shown as much as you would expect so far this season. You'd expect Chelsea to get the victory there, but I think it's going to be closer than you think. Southampton's been a bit of a surprise. You have Leeds Everton. You know, if Leeds really wants to be in that top half of the league, they got to show. Everton's a weak team this year, or has been so far, and I don't really see that changing. Then it's time for them to step up and do something. Games tomorrow: Bournemouth, Wolves. Bournemouth, if they have any chance of staying up, especially now that they've lost 9-0 to Liverpool and their goal differential is hugely negative, they got to win these games against teams that are not in that big 6-7 top teams with Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, etc. And this is a chance. So if they want any chance, this, you know, early in the season, get some points. But again, I would expect Wolves to sneak through with a 1-0, 2-1 victory with that. Man City has Nottingham Forest. As a Man City fan, I'm hoping that they're going to have you know, they have the depth to sub in a lot of players, but I'm hoping that they start a strong team. But I would expect Man City to win that comfortably, 3-4-0. Would be my expectation. Arsenal and Aston Villa. Hard to say, but again, I think you would expect Arsenal to win that 3-1, 4-2, 2-0, something like that. Again, they've been impressive so far this season. I think that, you know, my son who was on a few weeks ago, or before he went to Europe, we talked about it. They've just, you know, Arteta is a coach that we thought needed the time. They've given him the time. They've got the team around him, so I think they've really turned a corner. You have West Ham versus Tottenham. West Ham, like I said, they're struggling a lot more than you expect. Tottenham's been strong, so I would expect Tottenham to win that, you know, 1-0, 2-0 for sure. And then last game tomorrow, you have Liverpool Newcastle. You know, I'm not fully bought in that Liverpool's turned it around even with the 9-0 shellacking of Bournemouth this past weekend. I think there's still some struggles for them to work out. Newcastle's been impressive, and is definitely trying to make that move into the Big Six with the money that their owner has. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to predict probably like a 2-2 tie. Liverpool dropping a few more points, which they really can't afford to do. And the sole game on Thursday, Leicester City, Man U. Leicester City has spent nothing. I think they're the only team at this point in the transfer window that has done no business in bringing new players. And we're seeing what happens when you do that in the Premier League. You cannot stand still. You cannot be complacent on this is what we have on our roster. And you know, when you are, you end up in last place. That's just where, you know, just confirm that, make sure my memory's not failing me, but yeah, last place, just above Wolves and Everton. And then, you know, so you end up with this Man U starting to spend some additional money, trying to, you know, get that roster changed. I think their fans are still pretty unhappy with the ownership. But you know, if you can go on, you know, current form, Man U wins that again 2-0, 3-1, something like that. So that's my wrap up from past weekend. Predictions for the midweek games. If you disagree, let me know. I'd love to do a more interactive video, maybe on the World Cup coming up in November, December. How you feel about it being played in the winter. First time in history. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? The conditions with Qatar and getting that World Cup, do we have a problem with, the corruption that led to that, or are we okay with that for some reason? So let me know, put some comments out there. I'd love to hear back from you. And Rob Gillender with The Real Football Show.